All right, so this story goes back 7 years. 7 years ago, a lot was happening in my life. I was about to get married. I was about to move to California. I also started working with a producer in my hometown, Lincoln, who produces Christian rock music. And we found a way to bring together what I at the time had as a lot of different extended techniques for cello. And what I learned from him is like rhythm and micro rhythm, the way that you can stack things and to start to think about, what fits in a mix and, what types of parts are going to be like interesting. So I was just starting to try to be making my own music, and I was working with this producer. And yeah, so we did a session before I left, and then a year later as well, during which time we both had a chance to improve on our sample making skills, because I made my own. So I had the experience of tracking it and editing it again. But then we drove back in the heat with no AC. Man, that's a story for another time on its own. We were able to get a second tracking session, which allowed us more velocity levels per hit, and I think just better overall tone. But a lot of time continued to pass, and I did wonder if anything would ever come of these samples. So what kind of happened in the background was the realization that, when you try to release a sample library, how do you do that unless your customers buy Contact or some similar thing? So it just resulted in this producer, Philip, having to start from the ground up, working with a team to actually build a unique plugin. Now, the thing that I think is really interesting about this did kind of blow my mind. Philip had the idea from the beginning that he wanted something very malleable. Ultimately, it comes down to crafting a sound that fulfills that role, right? So you want something that's a little bit more malleable. What it ended up becoming in the end is less of like a solo cello instrument and more of like a unique third thing that exists separately from real cello, separately from also your typical sample library, because you're really creating a new sound, but with stuff that comes directly out of my playing, which is awesome. So yeah, first I just thought I would show you what it looks like immediately. Great design because there's a ton of buttons and knobs. It has these different sections as well where you can mod and arpeggiate. But here you can see, here are all the different styles of samples we did. With long forte, it sounds like this. So we also have staccato hits. I think these sound a little bit more natural. Tremolo, smooth legato. And then we have some like really cool like textural stuff, like this breathy. It's just plain really light. So anyway, that kind of shows you how it was initially, right? How we initially recorded it was basically just all these sounds. But you see what's happening here is kind of an instrument where mix all of it. So this is like the default setting here. Which, especially if it's going to be the supporting stuff for your mix, is a pretty realistic sounding convolution of strings. I really love that. And then also, you can tweak the tone by moving the knobs. There's also just like a ton of presets, and some of them are really interesting. Yes. Isn't that really nice? Anyway, I do think it's very imaginative. So let me show you like in context. So this is the new song, Just Words, that I'm coming out with soon. Let's just like listen before. This is what I think, I've got great high energy song going on there. Now, let's listen to it. This is what I think, It just sits in there exactly perfectly. to the point that it doesn't sound different. It just sounds like it's a recording, you know, the full frequency thing that we expect of these polished records. And it's not because it's too subtle. It's actually fairly loud. If we were to use the stock Alchemy sound and blend it in so it's like a similar volume, just a stock sample. This is what I think, what I know. This is what I think, what I... So, you know, a pad is a pad. It does achieve the result, rounding out the mix, but it also obfuscated things, whereas this made it sound punchier. So that's kind of the difference. I do think it's really impressive how, with relatively moderate, you know, like that is not tone sculpting EQ. That's just normal, like making sure it kind of works for the mix. Automation. You know, super easy. I mean, I put this together really quickly. So I wanted to show you another example, different type of song. All right. Now here, there's actually two cool things that I get to show you, because the sound design for this is a mix of the pads, but also working with an amazing producer. This is kind of what the song sounded like with just the cello. So hopefully you think already pretty nice. But I did just wanted it to feel a little more full. So then we added a lot of this stuff. So just in case it felt a little too subtle, we can listen to it on its own. So here most prominently some birds, but there's also some synth in the background. And I already thought that really made it look nice. You know, cello's harshest areas are those upper, mids, and high regions. So having some other stuff there, you know, only helps the cello sound more beautiful. Well, I wanted some of the samples. And here, instead of using the other ones, we're just using String Central. And I just clicked through different presets and found a few that I liked and mixed them to an appropriate level. So again, you know, this was like really quick to throw together. So again, it just took it to a new level of sounding complete. Here's on its own. So it really sounds like an old radio orchestra, super warm and nice. More warm than if I recorded myself, actually, because it's got this synthy sort of vibe to it. Here, it's totally wild, man. But it contributes such a vibe to this already string song. So obviously there's probably some factor of it sounds nice in my music because it's complementary sounds to what I was already recording. But, you know, to that end, I'm really happy because for 7 years I was like, you know, someday I might have this instrument that'll make my life easier as far as adding some of the background parts to music. And then I can focus on more just the leads, you know, the fun stuff, the creative stuff. Especially because my initial impression of the samples is, you know, all right, it's all right. You know, they're just kind of like, you know, what happens when you sample an instrument where it's not super realistic, but to be able to take it in the direction of leaning into the creative element of it, like to be able to take it in this creative direction where it's like just as useful as if it were hyper realistic, at least as long as you're not going for that, I think is really cool. And I didn't see it coming exactly how it is. And I'm just like, I can't believe how much is going on at once. We got new opportunities to record with people. We have new songs, we have now a new sample library that sounds fantastic. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just having fun making music, and no pressure about this. Just wanted you to know that it was out there and give my sort of review of it on the user end side of it. And I can genuinely say it is a really good plugin if that's the sort of thing that you're looking for. So thanks for watching, and yay, there's now a sample library of cello, psychedelic cello.